I'll be honest, man. Well, we'll talk about this in the interview, but I was like, man, we're doing this interview on September 11th, as if that's not already heavy enough.
Wow,
And,
yeah.
and then yesterday, I had already decided the day before, so I'm going to watch the Manchurian Candidate again. So I had just started watching it yesterday when all the news began to come out. I ended up finishing it, but holy shit, man,
It's pretty wild. Wild stuff. Like
it it is. All right, so I'm a little bit. I'm going to be
it's
honest, bro. I'm a little bit shaken.
it's gonna be like a watermark or some kind of stamp. Like they're gonna remember when Charlie Kirk got shot.
I
Because
think
he
so too.
wasn't really in it, he was like only using free speech. Like it's just words. He never said like let's destroy everybody or overthrow
That's
the government. He's just saying these are my opinions. So
That's my feeling about it. And I wasn't like a huge follower or something. I'm not a huge follower of anybody these days. And but every time I ever heard the guy, I was impressed by his composure. And man, I can't remember what I had for lunch, yesterday. And this dude is remembering like facts and figures. And I saw him like quoting stuff from the Bible today to some kid. And I was like, holy cow, man, you are on top of your work. But we'll talk about all of that. And I guess if you're ready,
I'm ready. I mean, there's a lot to talk about. The
there's a
thing is like the same day there was a shooting in, it ties back. The reason that I brought up Manchurian Candidate, it's kind of like a fictional distillation of so many themes that have happened since that time, going through the assassination of JFK, which is on its way here pretty soon, which is a year after the movie came out, and then all the way to today, where some of these people exhibit very strange behavior and a lot of personality changes before they decide to become patsies or assassins.
We're going to talk about all that. I'm going to start off. We got to cover Charlie Kirk for a few minutes, and then we'll delve into this because it all does tie together. And yeah, I think you were ahead of the curve on this, but I'm going to take a sip of tea, take a deep breath.
I do have slides too, and I have
Beautiful.
videos. If you want to show videos, it's really
Any
helpful.
Anytime you want to show something, just say,
Okay.
Michael, I want to share this, and then we'll be rolling.
Okay, cool.
And this is going to be pretty free form today because, like I say, my brain is a little bit broken from all this. But
It's all good. It's all good.
pull up my notes over here. Hello, friends. How's it going? It's Michael Parker, and welcome back. At the time of this recording, it is September 11th. And if that were not already enough of a stoic and tragic reminder of our past, just yesterday, Charlie Kirk, uh, um, a great speaker and I think a good, solid human being, an American, was assassinated at a speaking event yesterday at a college in Utah. And so we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the subject of Manchurian candidates. Our guest today is William Ramsey. He is a friend of the show, been on here many times, and I appreciate his work very much. He is the host of William Ramsey Investigates. You can find him on X as William Ramsey IN. He is also the author of numerous books and films. And William, I'm glad to have you back.
Great to be with you, Mike. Thanks for having me. It's been too long, and I really appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate you. I always enjoy your work. And ladies and gentlemen, if you're not following him on X, you need to be because he always has great conversations and topics to share. And I want to start off today's conversation. You and I, were exchanging emails just a matter of weeks ago. And today was a day that you and I could have this conversation that worked for both of us. And uh, little did either of us know that an assassination would occur the day before. And of course, the topic of Manchurian candidates goes back to the film, The Manchurian Candidate. And I'm talking about the original, not the remakes, which is about that very thing. So, first of all, let's talk about this tragic and senseless murder of Charlie Kirk. Your
Yeah, it's tragic.
thoughts?
He's kind of more of a kind of banner holder for his generation. He was only 31, had two kids. His wife and kids were on site, which is really horrible. So rest in peace, Charlie Kirk. And he was a free speech advocate. Even though he was on the right, he never advocated anything towards anybody. They always labeled him and mislabel him as a racist or a Nazi, but that's not true at all. And he just believed in kind of traditional values. But I guess that's too much for some people. I don't know, like there's still kind of like this dust hasn't settled. We don't know who shot him. There's all kinds of stuff going around, international. things, trans activists. But it does kind of strangely is similar to a lot of these other assassinations that have happened. There seem to have been like fake shooters on there to distract to get the real shooter away that we've seen. This guy Zen. It's like shoot me. And it really like sucked up all of the police on that time, so they didn't go after the real shooter, it seems like, who's on the roof, it seems like. But it's really an incredible event, and everybody's talking about it. And it's really a tragedy for the country. I think it's for everybody. It's a tragedy for the whole country because it just shows like this is where people go and stop talking. Because I think that's what Charlie Kirk was really doing. He was literally out there really going around to talk to people, and this is how he ended up. So it's a great tragedy.
Yes, I wasn't an avid follower of Charlie, but I was very well aware of him. And every time I tuned into his show, like driving around town, thumbing through the radio stations, or when I would see clips of him on the various mediums, I was always really impressed by his composure and his logic and his ability to speak with people who were fiercely against him, and he wouldn't lose his cool. And you know I don't have to agree with everything Charlie said. I agree with probably most of what he said. Regardless, it's it's really saddening to see, for me and for everyone, that this is what it's come to. And many people have said this, and I tend to agree. I think this is a watershed moment for America, and probably many people who share traditional values throughout the world, but especially America. I think we are at a pivotal moment.
I agree, totally agree. I mean, I think it's there's going to be like a mark here about what happened before and what happened after, because I think that that kind of tolerance, when these kind of things happen, people are going to feel afraid. The psychological ramifications are huge. It's going to be like a huge rock thrown in a pool with ripples because people are going to be more afraid. They're not going to be more comfortable with people different than themselves. And you throw in this girl who got killed right
Yes.
before that on the public train or whatever it was, bus.
Yes.
So you have these back-to-back things that are really horrifying. Like she turned her back on a guy who said that white bitch is dead. So it's like what? And then Charlie Kirk, who's in my mind not a very menacing character, gets shot, and that's like the whole thing. Like maybe he wasn't like Norman, like the Rockwell guy, who's like a literal Nazi. So. I think the ramifications are going to reverberate and probably only get stronger. And really, people will make a lot of different decisions now, and it'll be less. People's hearts will grow cold, as the Bible said. I think that's it.
I was at a large event this weekend. I went to go see the band Oasis in the Rose Bowl. And so I'm in there with all these people. And it was actually quite a jovial and happy event. The band was great, but it made me think of any kind of large events now, not just where politicians are speaking, but what happens when people begin to be afraid to go to a football game or to go to a concert or go to any situation where they believe a lot of people are going to be at, in the fear that someone is going to do something like what happened yesterday? And part of me, and this is just coming, I'm thinking out loud. Part of me wonders if sometimes that is the intended event, like you said, is just to make people even more fearful and make us retreat farther into our own homes and seeking connection only through electronic devices and not personal connection.
Other people have called it that. They've called it kind of a gladio where they're trying to create a strategy of tension for whatever reason. So things that happened in Europe where they were trying to make the left look bad by causing problems. And
Mhm.
maybe that's it, is there's a deeper meaning to try to sow more chaos in our society for whatever reason, for the warmongers or people who want a civil war or something like that. So that may be it. It may be like I've called it the collective psychic driving, because I think that this is a collective psychic driving. I think that's an important component of both of those two events, really, is the way that they're kind of presented as we're all vulnerable. Like both of that woman from Ukraine and
Yes.
Charlie Kirk are both very vulnerable. I mean, he didn't deserve that. That's the worst way to go out imaginable. And so I think that that's the deeper psychological thing people are going to get implanted with over and over. It's like, you're not safe. Society's dangerous. This is our common culture. So I think that's it. Is like they're made. We don't really know what's going on, but the effect is going to be like that. Like that's the effect, whether somebody intended to do it like that or not. I don't know.
Yesterday, I watched the film The Manchurian Candidate in its entirety yesterday in preparation for this. Meanwhile, I'm watching on my phone the updates on what had happened. And here again, ladies and gentlemen, I know probably what you know. I don't have inside information beyond what other people are theorizing out there. And they're saying this morning that, they released this photo of this, it looks like a thin Caucasian male dressed in black as a suspect. And then I've also seen pictures of what they believe is the gun. Now, at the same time, I'm reading what other people are saying regarding guns who know more about guns than I do. A 200-yard, or is it a 174-yard shot? Is that difficult to make? Is it not difficult to make? I can't speak to that because I don't know enough, but it leads to this other question of, is this the work of, once again, the lone gunman who has some reasoning for what they're doing, or perhaps there's some form of Manchurian candidate, or is it an external force that is trying to create further turmoil, further social discord within the public and the American public? And I don't have the answer to that yet. What I do think will happen, though, is regardless of if they apprehend someone or not, given our past and given the things that we've seen, especially on days like 9/11 and in the JFK assassination and MLK, I don't think that there's going to be a lot of people who are not going to believe whatever comes out about this. I hope that I'm wrong. I hope that they come up with incontrovertible evidence once they find the person. But my personal hunch is that a lot of people will not believe whatever is told to the public.
I think you're right. There's going to be a lot of deception, and a lot of people wouldn't believe the real stories of what you mentioned, which is MLK, JFK, and then you can throw in RFK, where almost all those
Yes.
guys are patsies. So there may be the desire for a patsy. It's pretty confident for one person to show up and take one shot and kill the guy and walk off. Like I don't know much about rifles and stuff, but some people have said that's not that difficult a shot. But just getting into place and having the cold-blooded lizard-like, shooter's hand to do that is something else. Like that takes anger or whatever. But so we'll find out. I'm not really ready to rush to judgment or conclusions, but people have usually, like when there's these huge events and assassinations and things, they usually don't want to get caught, so they try to get a patsy or somebody close. So we're going to see what the researchers come up with. They've got a guy right now who's like a main subject or suspect, but you're right. I think there's a lot of distrust too. Like I think that the citizen journalists are probably doing the best work on this right now instead of the media. They're really sharing a lot of stuff and looking into the videos and things like that. So
William,
hopefully we'll
I
see.
William, I think that citizen journalists have done a lot of the heavy lifting for a long time. And when I was saying that, I was not a guy who sat down and listened to Charlie Kirk every day. I don't sit down and listen to anybody every day, but I think that I keep on top of things enough that I can say with certainty and confidence that he was an excellent speaker. I think that he made a lot of sense on a lot of subjects. And one thing that I don't like that I've seen in the mainstream media in regards to this is how they always describe him right-wing activist. Now, if this had been somebody on the left, would they say left-wing activist? I don't think that they would. So they're still in mainstream media trying to frame this person in
Yeah,
a
like
almost.
pigeonhole them. Yeah, yeah.
Yes, and so I think that this gets me to my larger arc about what you and I are going to talk about today, which once again we had discussed talking about several weeks ago, which is this idea of Manchurian candidates. And one thing I wanted to ask you right off the bat is you've researched so many deep subjects. What was it that drew you to the topic of the Manchurian candidate at this point in time?
It's a great question. All of the recent assassinations, like I had a list of what I was going to talk to you about, and then Kirk gets assassinated in the on a rifle, kind of like what really ends Manchurian Candidate if you saw the whole thing. But I was going to mention this list. Nikita Kasap, he killed his parents, I think, in Minnesota. It was 09A adjacent and was going to go kill Trump, if you remember. Then Robin Westman was the guy close to Kasap, I think, who was the trans church shooter, right?
Hmm.
And then there's DeCarlos Brown who killed the girl in the train. Then there's Shane Tumura, if you remember him. He was the guy who went into the Blackstone building, I think in New York or the NFL and shot four people,
Yes, just recently.
then killed himself. Luigi Mangione, who
Yes.
went all the way from Oahu to Manhattan to kill somebody for very strange reasons, like Kaczynski, who's another MK guy, which we can go into, and then
Yes.
all of the Trump shooters. So it's Crooks, who's really suspicious and mysterious. Ruth,
Hmm.
who's on trial right now. Um, the list is long and recent. So that's kind of how I went back to the Manchurian Candidate is like, these guys are really suspicious, and why aren't they really obvious, and what are their motives? And when you look at the Manchurian Candidate, that is like how they're creating a patsy. They're trying to like manipulate them and mind control them. And also you can also throw like Oswald is like right after
Yes.
Manchurian Candidate. For people who don't know, it's total spoiler alert. Manchurian Candidate is based on a book by Richard Condon. He published it in 59. The movie came out in 62 with the help of JFK. It's part of the JFK assassination story, and almost no JFK researcher in the assassination includes it in there. And I think it's a big mistake because JFK was involved in making culture creation I think he was trying to warn the public about what was happening in real life. And Manchurian Candidate and 7 Days in May, which both were directed by John Frankenheimer,
Hmm.
came out back to back. So this came out in late 62, and then 7 Days in May came out in January of 64 with Dr.
Yes.
Strangelove. These are all very important kind of Cold War thrillers that were, I think, fiction based on fact. So that's the one thing that Manchurian Candidate's very interesting, whereas some films are just totally fictional and may not have relationship into the real world. Some are fictional, trying to tell you about the facts of life or facts of what's really happening. And I think Manchurian Candidate's it because there is actually a before and after Manchurian Candidate. There weren't that many strange assassins before 1960. And then after the Manchurian Candidate comes out, it's just this swath all the way through. You've got Oswald's much stranger than what they told you. Sirhan, super duper strange.
Yes.
James Earl Ray moving around a lot like Mangione. Hinckley, Chapman, two attempts on Ford, Gerald Ford, if you remember.
Yes.
Um, then going up to all the names that I enumerated and listed now. So these are all very strange people when you look at them. They're moving around, they have money in weird ways that they don't have. Like Oswald is poor, but he's traveling to Russia and coming back and getting back in the country. So I think that that's kind of well, if you the story of the Manchurian Candidate, Manchuria is the country or the state or principality north of Korea, and they're taken there. They're kind of put through this kind of rigmarole of brainwashing, and then they're sent to the U.S. to commit these murders, or this guy Raymond Shaw is. And the similarities between him and Oswald are undeniable because Oswald went from he was in the Marines, he went to Atsugi base in Japan, then supposedly defected to to the Russians, to the Iron Bloc or whatever, com communist bloc, comes in, gets moved into place, and supposedly shoots the president as a communist in November 22nd, 1963. Much like Raymond Shaw, who was like goes from the communist bloc. He's being handled during the movie. If you follow the arc, he's being handled the whole way he's put into place for the great ending assassination at a very important venue, Madison Square Garden in Manhattan. So that's the kind of thing. It's like the similarities, and there's a lot of information in that film that correlates to very important studies that were done under MK Ultra in the 50s. during the 50s. So I think Condon distilled those and put them into the characters and the dialogue. Some of the dialogue in the film is direct quotes from the dialogue that's in the Manchurian Candidate. So you can kind of see that as a distillation of all these important principles. It would, for people who don't know, the Manchurian Candidate was taken off the market and disappeared for
Yes.
25 years. Why? Like, this is really important. And in the 90s, it was given like one of the top 100 movies in the AFI, American Film Institute. It was one of the top 100 movies, but it was never seen. Like, it's totally mysterious. The movie itself is very strange. Like, no other film is like has that much good reputation, but wasn't seen until then, and then it was remade. The remake is nothing as good as the original.
Well, you kind of presaged my next question about the film itself, which was based on the book, which was written by Condon, I believe you said was the man's name. So my question is, because I don't know much about Condon, what this is an incredibly sophisticated film, so I'm guessing his book was probably even more sophisticated, which leads me to the question, how much did this man know and where did he get his information?
It's a great question. I don't know. I have to look more into Condon, but I appreciated his writing and his
Yes.
frame of reference. He has a lot of classical allusions. He also is very familiar with kind of like Illuminati numbers. Like this is September 11th. He includes 11s in there,
Yes.
just over and over. So there's 11 men troops. There's things that happen when 11s are said. 11 is the number of magic. And I think that what he's implying is that this whole hypnotization, which really is true, this ability to induce different altered states in people is kind of like an act of magic. And but yeah, Condon is a remarkable guy. I think he wrote 20 or 25 books. He's very smart, and he also wrote Prizzi's Honor. If people have seen those movies, I think it's Jack Nicholson. So he had some success of writing books and going to films and stuff like that. But yeah, his frame of reference, it's interesting. I don't know how much of that information that they were really going through made it to the public. For some reason, Condon keyed into really key elements of this kind of MK Ultra stuff, which is really sophisticated doctors and psychiatrists wrote papers on all these things. Um, and it's reflected in the film. If you remember the kind of character, Dr. Yen Lo, he's
Yes.
very smart. He's like, can you do something against your own will? That's a fairy tale. You know, we can do this. We do, and this is based on the paper of this. He also works for the Pavlov Institute. So Pavlovian, kind of like the dog hears the bell, it salivates. Um, so he had those kind of sophisticated statements in there. And then also this kind of idea of this triggering and the induction of things through the phone, which Project Artichoke, which preceded MK Ultra, they found out they were able to do that, is actually just call somebody on the phone and give them the right kind of phrases, and they would actually go into a different state. And that happens to Raymond Shaw. And so I think that, I mean, to answer your question, he was much more sophisticated, and I don't know why he knew. I think this was his second book, and I know that he was a publicist for, he's kind of lost to history. It's kind of a shame, like nobody talks about Condon anymore. But I know that he was a publicist for big films in Hollywood before he started his writing career. So maybe he was exposed to stuff in that way. I don't know.
Well, that's interesting. And this is extrapolation, but the first thought that goes through my mind when you said publicist, and I'm not trying to impugn the man's reputation, but like, what does a publicist do? A publicist makes you believe that you want to see or hear something, right? And you want to give it more attention in media in some way. So that's interesting. And then John Frankenheimer, now he and someone bought the rights to the book to make the film.
The background of the film is really interesting in and of itself. If you remember that time, JFK kind of squeaked out a win in 1960. He got
Yeah.
votes from West Virginia and Chicago, arguably mob related. We know now Sinatra is very close to a lot of
Mhm.
underworld figures, but he was also best friends with JFK. And according to like Sammy Davis Jr., Sinatra had like a speed dial to the White House. He was very
Mhm.
close friends, and he helped when JFK won. He helped with the inauguration and got a lot of celebrities. So he brought a lot of celebrity power to the inauguration. But the foundation of this film, we know JFK liked spy books. He read Ian
Yes.
Fleming, James Bond. So he read this, and they were together at Hyannisport, which is the Kennedy family compound. And JFK says, you should make this film. And that's really the green light. So JFK, through his Democratic connections, got the financing through the film for Hollywood to get it made. And the budget was 2.2 million, and the production company was Sinatra. So that once the JFK assassination happened, Sinatra was able to pull all the rights to the film because he owned it. It was his production company. He was the driving force. He was the guy who like put everybody together. He got all the actors. He hired Frankenheimer. He hired Axelrod. Um, and they were the ones that put it together. And Frank, I mean, it's just an incredible thing. I actually have a video of them if you want to watch it, that of
Sure.
these guys together. They're talking about how it got made. It's really incredible. Let me see if I can. I don't know if I can get the audio to play because sometimes I have trouble with that.
If the audio isn't playing, I'll let you know
Okay.
right away.
Let's see. It's got to share this. Share, send request.
All right.
Share. Can you see that?
I can. It's blurry, but
Okay,
maybe
well,
when
it's
you
just
start,
the intro. Let's see.
copy that.
Can you hear the audio? Can you hear
No.
the audio?
No.
Okay. Let's see. Stop share. I think I have to bring it up on a tab. That's kind of what happens, I think.
Ladies and gentlemen, as many times as I've used Zoom and I still have to go back to YouTube tutorials to tell me how to do certain things. I don't use these in large boardroom meetings or something. I speak to people like William, and I guess I should sort this out in the future.
It's all right. We're gonna get this done. Let me just get this tab up here. But yeah, it's really interesting because they kind of go into how this film was made. It's like they're like telling you, like, hey, this is it. Oh man, come on. I know how to do this. I don't know why I'm not doing it, but
well, no worries. Let me ask you something else, because in the film, and I'm assuming this comes directly from the book, there is these. Okay, I see the
try it
video.
now. You should hear the sound.
I hear it now. I do hear it now.
This is really interesting. I think you'll find this interesting. This is the director, the writer,
a film
and
exploded onto
Sinatra.
movie screens all over the world that was destined to become a classic.
Why is all of this being done? What have they built you to do?
Tell me, Raymond, have you ever killed anyone?
No, ma'am.
Not even in combat?
In combat?
Raymond, show, please.
This is he.
Raymond, why don't you pass the time by playing a little solitaire?
26 years later, John Frankenheimer, the director, George Axelrod, the writer, and Frank Sinatra, the film's star, reunite for the first time to discuss the making of The Manchurian Candidate.
This is 1998. They come together.
It became a real movie. I mean, without you, we wouldn't have had a movie.
Look at how full the glass is with Sinatra, by the way. He doesn't have to tip the glass very far. Watch.
No.
No, but that's true. When you did something that most people just don't do, and which is that you committed to this on faith in us.
I remember that, yes.
It was really a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful experience. And you let me do what I was able to do. You let George do what he was able to do. There was none of this constant interference that you read about today.
It's so simple to explain. We three people believed what we were doing. We wouldn't have been together if we hadn't believed it. And I think that really was the answer to how it came about. It's not the fact that I let you do what you wanted to do. Not at all.
From my point of view, I remember two things that you contributed that were extraordinary because you didn't really know you were contributing. I was working on the script in New York, but this time you were in California, and a certain amount of time had elapsed. And and you were very, very patient. You hadn't seen the script yet. And finally you called and said, I'd like to see some pages. And it's been quite a while. I don't mean 20 pages. I mean, I would like to see a few more pages than 20 pages. As it happened, you were absolutely psychic. I had 20 pages. So I ended up absolute panic. I finally got my stuff together. I had all the stuff laying. I had never put it together. I was frightened. Over the weekend, I got you 80 pages and sent it. I would never have pushed the thing over and got the first 80 had you not suddenly given it a little push. And the second thing I recall was, you remember the monster time we had shooting? You remember Johnny shooting 6 or 7 days shooting the dream sequence?
Oh, yeah.
You remember?
Oh, yes,
what a
of
nightmare
course.
shooting that
Oh,
thing
yeah.
was. You had to shoot it for every different angle.
That's correct.
With every different combination.
And Frank finished in the picture, if you recall, and he was going to leave. So we just said, let's cut it together, just quick, just make a quick rough cut for Frank. And we did that afternoon, showed it, and we never changed it.
No, we never did.
Yeah, I was earlier this afternoon. I was remembering and discussing your marvelous invention, changing the ladies of the Garden of New Jersey into the communist Chinese and Russians, and that knocked me out.
Marvelous outlet for his aggressions. May I have the bayonet, please?
Not with the knife, with the hands.
With the hands? Here, have him use this.
The United Artists had said we're scared to make this thing because
This is one of Sinatra's last interviews. He died in '98, in May 1998. So this is like he's nearing the end. Still drinking all the way to the end, by the way. Crazy.
And the gentleman in the middle just said that United Artists was afraid to make the film.
Yeah. It's crazy. Watch what he says too. Sinatra will say JFK wanted to know all the details about the making of the movie. So that's an important element of Manchurian Candidate is JFK's like hands-on. He wants to know. Listen.
it is so, they said, so anti-Russian, which it wasn't. And it wasn't, of course, but they said, and if President Kennedy, a year from now when this picture is released, if Kennedy is just about to have some sort of a rapport with the Russians, it's going to embarrass them. And you said, I would just come down from Hyannisport, and I saw the president, and the president said, what are you going to do next? And I said, the Manchurian Candidate. And he said, great, who's going to play the mother? Well, that sort of ended that argument, if you remember.
He was really interested, though, in the facts of the project itself.
The fact that people have read all kinds of
He was really interested in the facts of the project itself. So that's JFK. So
notations into this thing is funny because we set out to do Dick Condon's book, that's what we did.
Right.
We did all sorts of strange things, but we did them so automatically. I mean, it's rather strange that Angela Lansbury was 1 year older than Larry Harvey and played his mother. And nobody questioned it for a second.
She was superb.
She was just wonderful.
Absolutely marvelous. And she was sinister. She really
God,
was. Boy,
terrifying.
She was a heavy.
But now we have come almost to the end. One last step. And then when I take power, they will be pulled down and ground into dirt for what they did to you. And what they did in so contemptuously underestimating me.
In the book, there's quite a big thing.
in the book, the big thing is that she has him under hypnosis and then has sex with her son.
What?
So, yeah. So the book has a lot of incest themes in it. It's really dark. And Angela Lansbury is on a couple lists. Her character, Eleanor Iselin, is considered one of the top 25 villains in all of Hollywood history because she's such a total manipulator. She's basically like Hillary Clinton. But believe it or not, in the intro to the book of Condon's book, he writes an introduction. He said, the two people I based her character on were Livia, who was Augustus's mom during the Roman Empire, and she poisoned all of his enemies and killed them. They all mysteriously died. They were all poisoned. And then the other person was Roy Cohn. So if you remember, Roy Cohn is Trump's kind of like mentor and in New York City. And Roy Cohn was one of the original blackmailers. He would send little boy. The rumor is, really dark stuff.
So, I mean, JFK was interested in this and he read a lot of spy novels. He was also the president of the United States and came up through government. So he was privy to sophisticated levels of, or the sophisticated ways that intelligence agencies worked.
I think so. I think he was really, if you remember, he was offered the Northwood stuff. So like the fake bombings and false flags. And he rejected that, and that made him even more angry, which ties into 7 Days in May. A lot of people in the JFK assassination, they're like the CIA, but it was also, there was a lot of military dudes who were very angry with JFK. LeMay, who's a real piece of work, Willoughby, and Lansdale. According to the JFK movie by Oliver Stone, Lansdale is seen on site. Like he's literally on site in November 22nd, 1963. But I think sorry.
Oh, sorry. I saw a quote and I don't know when this quote was made, but it's attributed to John Frankenheimer. And he says, if you can believe Wikipedia and wherever they cited this from, his quote was, "The whole point of Manchurian Candidate, which came out in 1962, was the absurdity of any type of extremism, left wing or right."
Interesting. Well, that's a good quote because it was pretty extreme. Those were the 60s were really crazy.
Yes.
Frankenheimer's history goes on. Like he was friends with RFK, so like he's very much a part of the Democratic Hollywood machine. And he had a lot of interesting friends, Warren Beatty and things like that. Warren Beatty would go on to make probably the most paranoid of all paranoid thrillers, which is called The Parallax View, which is also about patsy creation. And the twist the twist on that is he's the patsy. He's studying patsies. He becomes the patsy at the end, if you remember that show. In another sequence involving rifles and shooting candidates again. So it's in the context of political assassinations.
Well,
Right?
let's talk about Manchurian candidates themselves. And I was looking into people that are thought to be Manchurian candidates. Of course, Lee Harvey Oswald would be them. But to your point, he was a Manchurian patsy. So we're going to talk about Manchurian patsies as well. But for the people who may not have looked into this before, describe what a Manchurian candidate is and the technologies that you would use to create one.
It's a great question. I think the Manchurian candidate is somebody who's elected or selected and handled, much like Raymond Shaw. He has handlers the whole time. And you see it reflected in real world facts, whether it's Lee Harvey Oswald or uh, let's see, Sirhan or Billy, was it Ray? What's the guy's name? James Earl Ray, who
Yes.
supposedly shot things. They all have the same thing. There's some kind of weird background. They're given some kind of legend that's fake. There's really sophisticated people around them, and a lot of weird mind control things are around them. And that's one of the elements that's strange about Lee Harvey Oswald in the JFK thing is that they don't go into the fact that he's been under like psychiatric analysis since he was very young, 13 or 14. He dies at 24. He has one of the most interesting lives that you can imagine from a guy whose dad died early and he was really lower middle class, if not like just work like lower class, like working class type person who was elevated into world history. And so I think that the Manchurian Candidate is this kind of like we're working on this like there's machinations between kind of very powerful people in intel or military who are putting these people together to make them use to take the blame for crimes they didn't commit.
And how would you do that? Explain the MK Ultra and some of these types of
Yes.
ideas.
It's a great question. There's what happened is they were during the Cold War, it goes back to like post World War II, but they were really trying to figure out a lot of stuff with going on with the Germans and Paperclip and the Nazis. And Dulles is right there. He's definitely an intel asset in Switzerland. And he brings this guy, Ewan Cameron, who's a like the head of the World Psychiatry Group. Like he's basically a bigwig. And he interviews Hess. If you remember, Hess in 1941 got in a plane and flew to northern Scotland to try to like have a détente with the Great Britain and failed. But he's like interrogation and all this stuff. And so now that the world, the war ends, but now it's moved to the Cold War against the communists. The communists are seen as a threat. And Dulles moves out of his position at the OSS eventually to become the head of the CIA in 53. And that's when MK Ultra starts. He has a famous kind of speech called Brain Warfare, and so that's a long kind of background to get in, but basically the MK Ultra is a series of 149 sub projects to do a wide variety of things, but to develop techniques to really it's a behavioral modification program to create different personalities and change personalities through the use of drugs, sensory deprivation, repeated
Trauma.
phraseology, traumatic mind control, trauma-based mind control, a lot of different techniques that they had. And so some of these guys really have been tampered with. And the goal was to kind of destroy their kind of time-space continuum and make them pliable to suggestion. And I think that some of these guys really they really kind of broke down their mentality, and they became trainable. They became like Sirhan was kind of like the optimal subject. He could go into different states of mind, and to this day, different states of mind, much like what was going on in Manchurian Candidate. If you remember, Raymond Shaw, he goes through the medical thing, but he's basically brainwashed into going into a deep state, trance state by the Queen of Diamonds, which is why that Queen of Diamonds motif is repeated in there in that film all the time. Uh, but basically, I think they can do that in real life. So some of these people really are tampered with, and then they're given post-hypnotic suggestion, which means they're in a hypnotic state. They're given suggestions that they follow when they come out of the trance. And so I think that what they found out about Sirhan is he had a triggering effect where if you, and this is in multiple books, like
Yep.
I've had these authors on, Tim Tate on my show, Lisa Peace, where they could just grab his elbow and he would have a response to it. And he would have
I
amnesia too. So he doesn't remember anything. Chapman's like that too. A lot of these guys, like these, they supposedly commit these crimes and then they just sit around like, hey, nothing happened. If you watch like Oswald, why is he sitting around in Dallas? If he just took a shot at the president and blew his head off, as they so-called say he did, why isn't he on the run going for the border or trying to disappear up into the Sierra Nevada mountains or something? Like he just sits around, he goes back to his house, he drops stuff off, then he goes to some theater. Why? That doesn't make any sense. Like you would have an exfiltration plan, much like what happened with this guy Kirk. He clearly had an exfiltration plan because he didn't get caught. Um, so to long answer to your question, that's what a Manchurian Candidate is.
And I believe in Sirhan, I believe his defense team even said that he had been hypnotized or programmed and were kind of pointing to perhaps experiments by the CIA or MK Ultra. I think that's even what his defense team was trying to say.
There's no question about it. He had very sophisticated, he was surrounded, it gets complex. One of the interesting thing is what I think Dulles learned by bringing you and Cameron in is these got the intel, the big heads, the top heads like Helms and Dulles learned that these psychologists could be put to use. And I think you and Cameron was one. You and Cameron would go on to do horrible experiments at McGill. There's a recent court case actually that took place in July of this year, 2025, that is the most important legal case about mind control I've ever seen. There's no question about it because it shows the 60-year history of everything that happened. But they would bring in these kind of intel connected psychiatrists and manage these guys. Like Chapman had 6 doctors and Sirhan had like all these, he was in and out of the hospital. If you remember in the Manchurian, see, this is how smart Condon was. In the Manchurian Candidate, Raymond's in the Manchuria, and then he's brought to the New York, and then he's in a fake hospital. And
Yes.
and so these guys, if you look at even Oswald and Sirhan's in and out of the hospital all the time. And he supposedly he fell off a horse or something like that, but he's in the hospital for like 2 weeks. And if you overlap that with what you and Cameron was doing in McGill, that's enough time for them to really put the zap on people. It's really scary. But that's
Well,
that's how I think the technique is to use all these drugs, psychic driving, and stuff like that to kind of to break these guys down and make them pliable to being directed. Yeah.
I believe the MK Ultra ran from 53 to 73, and that's just kind of the official story. I mean, I'm sure that it has gone on under different names. And man, what I'm about to say, if my memory serves me, in the beginning of the mass school shooting phenomena, it was found, and I think one of the primary ones, and the listeners will correct me if I'm wrong in my memory, but it seems like in several of these cases, I think the Batman Aurora murder in
Holmes, his name
particular,
was Holmes. Yeah.
these kids uh, were seeing mental health practitioners, and in several cases, these people were coming from families within defense type of intelligence situations. And my point to all of this is that you've got a 20-year acknowledged drugging, programming, MK Ultra type program. That's 20 years of research. Plus, it continues on. And you said something earlier, which is another of my longer arcs in this general thing. You said repeated phraseology. And here's my other concern about all of this. Imagine creating Manchurian candidates through these advanced psychological techniques, very dark, anti-human technologies. And imagine if you came to the conclusion after a while, you know what? What if we just say things over and over and over and over again until that is enough to entrain people's minds to act out in certain ways? And the reason that I bring this up is I think that's what the media does. It just repeats things over and over and over again until people have this uncontrollable rage in which they can no longer even function on a rational level. And when I would watch these people speaking to Charlie Kirk, they would come up to him very upset about this, that, and the other thing. They didn't really offer a lot of cogent arguments, and he would sit there and disassemble their arguments. And what you would just see on the other side was rage. My point is that what started out as this sophisticated technology that Condon clearly had a vision of or knew about because it's depicted very avidly in the film has finally come down to the point, you know what? If you just say things enough times, a lot of the people can become hypnotized in that way.
I agree. I agree. Safe and effective, all these things, it's a conditioned responses. They get angry is a conditioned response. So the public's been conditioned through television, and I think this is kind of the operational. One of the elements when you look at all these different programs they had, MK Ultra was the research. It's not the operational element. So it's a huge Manhattan Project level research project that is like, if you know the Manhattan Project where they tried to create the bomb, Oppenheimer and all that
Yes.
stuff, they had almost every little piece. There's places in New Mexico, Colgate, New York, and they're all doing little things. They're all compartmentalized and they're all doing little components for us, but they don't see the big picture that all this stuff's going to come together and create a bomb. And I think that MK Ultra was like that too. So you had this kind of thing where they weaponized already existing institutions like colleges, state hospitals, um, created wings and things like that all over the country for 20 years to research this. And I think Helm said we destroyed all of the papers. Well, they were done. They didn't need to keep the research anymore. They had done all the research. And so that's why you see these strange people going out and shooting people, school shooters. And one of the interesting things that you see is these people's compulsion to kill themselves. And if you remember in the time yet Dr. Yen Lo was talking to him in Manchuria, he's literally talking about suicide programming. Like, we can create suicide programming for you. And it's really incredible when you think about like the consequences. Like, they researched it. They really did. And they had the breadth. These guys are freaking brilliant. Like, these are really smart people. Jolly West, Ewan Cameron, Orne. These names are like, they're Diamond. They're they're doctors. They're very smart and accomplished people working on this, but trying to, and then the other thing that's interesting is they had an external kind of, they're like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. So they're treating people and supposedly helping people, but they're like damaging them or manipulating them and keeping tabs on them, like doing research and then sending them back out into the public and still doing like the most creepy, like, monitoring you could imagine Ewan Cameron was doing.
In in the film, one of the things they talk about, and the Yen Lo, I think was his name. Anyway,
Asian
he
guy, yeah.
yeah, he explains at one point the point of this is to create this assassin, this murderer who has no memory, and if they don't have any memory, they can't have any guilt, and if they don't have any guilt, they can't act in a guilty fashion. So, for a film in 1962, what was the response to the film at the time?
It made a little bit of money, and a lot of people didn't understand it, and it wasn't successful. It didn't really have as much of an impact as it does maybe today now that I'm talking about it, but um it wasn't that big, and like I said, it was suppressed for whatever reason. Sinatra kept it, out of the public. I'm going to play this. This is the sequence
Okay.
that you have. This is the video you're talking about. I hope that the sound will play. But
Do you
listen.
realize, comrade, the implications of the weapon that has been placed at your disposal?
Yen Lo says it's a weapon. Apparently, this actor, his name is Ding or something. He was in Hawaii Five-O too, like the original Hawaii Five-O.
Hey, remove your head bandage, Raymond. Normally conditioned American who's been trained to kill and then to have no memory of having killed. Without memory of his deed, he cannot possibly feel guilt, nor will he, of course, have any reason to fear being caught. And having been relieved of those uniquely American symptoms, guilt and fear, he cannot possibly give himself away. Our Raymond will remain an outwardly normal, productive, sober, and respected member of the community. And I should say, if properly used, entirely police-proof. His brain has not only been washed, as they say, it has been dry cleaned.
Absent of fear and guilt. He doesn't have any guilt because he doesn't know what he's done. He has amnesia.
I want to go back to RFK and Sirhan, and here again, remind me of this, but it seems like there was the woman in the polka dot dress, which would be a triggering type device, similar to the Queen of Diamonds. You mentioned that Frankenheimer was friends with RFK as well. Talk about that.
In 68, RFK is trying to get the nomination. At the end of Manchurian Candidate, the shooting takes place at the nomination at Madison Square Garden.
Yeah.
RFK is in California. He's traveling around, but his center base is Frankenheimer's house in Malibu, where there's kind of like a mini salon. And Warren Beatty's there and a lot of other celebrities at that time. Beatty was kind of a big star. And then also
Huge star.
Jane Sebring was there, who the FBI harassed to the point she supposedly committed suicide. That's another really kind of like state harassment case, which is another show. But a lot of people were there. And so what RFK would do is like go out on these, speaking tours and go see Cesar Chavez. He's on the left, right? And then come back to Frankenheimer's house. And then when the time of the assassination, this guy who directed Manchurian Candidate, drives RFK to the Ambassador Hotel, where I think he either won the acceptance of California, so he accepted California's, which basically sealed the deal for him to be the presidential candidate for the Democrats. So it was a celebratory moment. And then according to Ed Sanders, who's a great researcher who wrote stuff about Manson as well, that at the Ambassador Hotel, Frankenheimer, who we just saw, is standing there and he brushes by Sirhan as he's being moved into place. He's being Manchurian Candidate handled just like Raymond Shaw, being put into that pantry. And then Frankenheimer later, like he kind of had like a little mini breakdown, like he left the country. He was totally freaked out and moved to France after the event, after Kennedy got shot. And he literally asked a friend, according to recordings, or in this book by Sanders, he said, is it possible? They don't understand at that time. So they don't see a lot of the research that's been exposed now. But he actually asked a friend, is it true that what we filmed about the Manchurian Candidate could be true? And it's a long arc, you have to see it because it's the element of what Dulles was going. Right? Dulles is the head in 53. He knows Cameron. He's friends with Cameron. Like those are bad friends to have. Like these are really two remarkable people who are very evil, very talented, like high IQ. But he's like central to the JFK assassination story. He is let go after the Bay of Pigs. He's the head of the CIA. And there's something going on between him and JFK. Like Dulles says, this guy thought he was a god. That's the way he saw JFK. And JFK must have saw him as a threat and let him go. But he's the former head of the MK Ultra. And one of the more interesting things, this ties into like real world events today, is that there was a series of handlers for Oswald and people surrounding him. Thornley, McMillan, DeMorenschilt, Ferry, Clay Shaw, and the final one is a woman by the name of Ruth Payne. And Ruth Payne actually picked up Oswald from New Orleans and drove him to Dallas, drove him to Irving, Texas, and got him a job at the book depository. And she recently passed away at 92 within the last week. So this is like relevant. She took many secrets to her grave and supposedly found it really ties into this story about Kirk, because that was where they found the Mannlicher Carcano rifle, is at her garage. Like mysteriously, the rifle mysteriously shows up in her garage, right?
Yeah.
And with the receipts and weird stuff, like, wow, this is a miracle. Like it just immediately produced it, and that's what tied um Oswald to the whole story. But the kicker about her is that she was kind of an Eastern WASP elite. She's from, kind of like Puritan stock or whatever you want to call it. And one of her best friends was this woman named Mary Bancroft. And they always leave this out. Like they can never get this out to the public because it would give away the whole thing. Who's Mary Bancroft? Mary Bancroft and Ruth Payne are traveling around Europe together. They're just carousing and drinking and meeting boys and things like that in their youth. And then Bancroft becomes friends with somebody. She meets somebody in Switzerland. She's multilingual, and she ends up working for, guess who? Alan Dulles. And so she becomes Alan Dulles' lover and secretary for 4 years and assembles people together to kill Hitler. So these guys are involved in like overthrowing governments. They tried to overthrow the government against Hitler. We know it as Operation Valkyrie. It's the June 1944 plot, right? Where they tried to blow him up. She knows the guy who's like one of the heads. His name is Javisius. And she writes an autobiography called Autobiography of a Spy. Like she's a spy. And here she is later, this whole arc travels all the way around, and one of her best friends becomes Oswald's handler, involved in the death of JFK, like huge event. Like our whole history changed after JFK got greased. And I mean, the Oswald stuff going back, like there were LSD tests going on at Atsugi. There's arguments this guy was tested upon. He was clearly handled. He had been in and out of strange hospitals. There's research about him, like when he was in, it's a lot like the movie because when he was in Russia, he was going to like CIA attaches.
Yeah.
Like he was handled forever.
Clearly.
And yeah, I mean, just by multiple people.
And he was going to Mexico City as well for some reason.
Oh, multiple different names, fake things. He knew stuff. There's like supposed connections. I mean, there's Bannister and just a bunch of these characters that they're creating a legend out of him. There's the famous kind of fair play for Cuba thing where he's pretending he's a communist, but there's no real kind of activity of him being a communist, like hanging out with other communists or like we're plotting together. He's hanging out with these anti-communist types like Ferry, really savage. He was a CIA agent. Like Daniel Hopsicker said, Ferry is a CIA agent, which makes sense. He's also he's almost like a warlock. He's very strange. He knows post-hypnotic suggestion. He's a defrocked priest. He has this fake priesthood of like the Orthodox Church, which is a non accepted kind of sect. I mean, it's just, and it's really, it ties into the end of Manchurian Candidate, because if you remember at the final assassination, Raymond Shaw dressed up as a priest.
Yes, he does.
And some of the assassinations after JFK died in 1963, all the witnesses got greased. Like there's 20 people who died mysteriously. And some of them said, I'm being followed by a priest. Like you cannot write this stuff. Like somebody dressed in a priest outfit is following them around. And then they got shot or died or fell through a plate glass window or something. So it's it's just a real intel. And all these people said that Oswald's covered by intel. One of the giveaways, the final thing I'll say is one of the people who knew of Oswald was somebody very high up at the CIA. He was the center of like counterintelligence ops. His name was James Jesus Angleton. He had a special file called the 201 file. Just Jefferson Morley writes about this, that had all of Oswald's info, but it was basically stovepipe just to Angleton. So nobody else at the CIA could ever see all the stuff they were collecting on just Oswald. So Oswald was very important and very special to the intel community.
And the JFK assassination, we're still talking about it, and they supposedly declassified these files earlier this year, which, as far as I can tell, there wasn't much that we didn't already know or surmise that was released. So, um, but I read something today, right before we started this, a person that I've never heard of. So I'm going to ask you, hey, did you ever hear of this 1940s model named Candy Jones?
Yeah, I've heard that story. Yeah.
Well, I don't. What do you know about it? Because she claimed to be a CIA mind control subject in the 1940s.
There were different people targeted for different reasons, and for some reason they wanted to like create sex slaves,
Yes.
impliable women, and what Stepford wife type people,
Yeah.
and I think she was one of them. And she was involved in a lot of like weird things. I think she mentioned Bob Hope. I don't know her full story. I haven't read it, but she claims to have been tampered with. When you go back and look at if I would have listened to her story 10 years ago, I would have said she's not well or schizo.
Right.
But now, in the context of all these other people that I've read, they really were doing those tests. And I believe that she was one of them that they were tampering with. They partitioned her brain so she could remember stuff. And there's another guy. Have you ever heard of Nagel?
I'm not sure.
Nagel. He's
Well,
a
I've
kind
heard of
of
the painter Nagel, but
this guy was like a really dark, like heavy duty op, like a deep state operative. They were putting him in places, but he's kind of a interesting element. It ties into Candy Jones. He's an interesting element of the JFK because he knew it was going to happen. So what he did is he went to like a post office in southern Texas and shot it up and got arrested so that he wouldn't be involved in anything and he could be proved that he was in jail, right? So he didn't want to have anything to do. So they threw him in jail. He's like, JFK is going to get greased. And he also said that his brain was partitioned in a very sophisticated manner so that he would remember information upon prompts, hypnotic prompts. And I think Candy Jones was the same way.
this brings us up to right now, and my final, some of my final points on this is now we flash forward to today and this tragic thing that just happened yesterday, this tragic assassination of Charlie Kirk. I'm seeing things now, and right before we did this recording, I saw photographs of a book that apparently is on Amazon about essentially the murder of Charlie Kirk, and this thing has a release date of September 9th, which is the day before yesterday. And then there are people that were putting out music about these things. Now you could, I don't know, do we chalk this up to the what is the word, the collective unconscious and the people that wanted such a thing to happen to a person who was clearly effective in conveying a message? Or, is this going to go deeper? I think it's going to go deeper. I don't know if we'll find answers. There's also this suspicious plane that flew out of Provost, Utah, that had these strange 888 tail letters and they took their transponders off for a while. I mean, this to me has the earmarks of some type of larger crime, even than the already horrible crime of someone murdering him for whatever reason they did. So I don't know what's going to happen. And I don't know that we'll ever know. I hope that I'm wrong in all of it.
I hope we find out who did it, like the real
Yes.
person and not a patsy. So
Yes.
we'll see what the government does, what these new guys do, Cash Patel or whatever. But it doesn't look good.
No.
Usually the criminal's caught within 48 hours. So we'll see what happens, but it's a tragedy. And I think these strange things will happen. Like there's more of these school shootings. Even on the same day yesterday, there was
Yes.
a shooting in Colorado where a kid killed two people.
Yep.
The police said he was just radicalized online, which is weird. So he has a handler, somebody's influencing him, then he kills himself, right? Just like Raymond Shaw, just like the suicide programming that's in Manchurian Candidate. So
I'm
like
trying. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
it's just like this is fiction to fact. That's the way I titled one of my other talks is that even though it's fictional, these things are happening in the real world, whether they're how much of stuff. There's just strange things like Peyton Gendron. He was another one of these mass shooters. He like had some compulsion to drive to Buffalo, New York and shoot a bunch of black people. and he's handled by like he had an FBI kind of online connector. Like this has already been found. So this is the new kind of mind control Manchurian candidate where they're influencing through people through the internet. So you got to keep an eye on your kids and keep an eye on yourself. And like there's all kinds of techniques and strange things. You talk about repetitive phraseology. Like you really want to be careful, like protect your mental state and what you watch and do. Like it's not a joke.
I've been very worried about indoctrination probably for 10 years. And the amount of people yesterday that were expressing glee in the assassination of this man, and there were teachers, there were law enforcement, there were first responders, coaches, people. Like, how in the world do you get to such a point that you are so detached from any form of human compassion that you will now take a video of yourself being gleeful over the murder of a man with a family? It just, I don't know how we get there. And it brings me to this quote that I saw today, and it was from Charlie Kirk. And I think it has very much to do with this subject of Manchurian candidates, because I think that we are looking at a whole lot of Manchurian candidates, and people don't want to call it that. He said in an interview, he said, the project in front of us now is how do we de radicalize the country in the next few years?
Right. It's a good question. I mean, I don't know. I think
Yeah.
that these people need to pull back and go, wow, is this really what you're about? Like you created this opposition. These people are really your enemy. Like Charlie Kirk to me is the most benign person. Like
Yes.
there's a lot more dangerous people on the right who've said worse things.
Oh, for
Like this
sure.
is the guy that you're really gloating about. Like, wow, this is just sick. You're sick. Like, well, how does it get to that problem? And they're mostly like leftists. Like, how do you get to the problem where like you really see them as your enemy?
Right.
Like free speech is nothing, guys. Like, and it's anti-American, but it's also like anti just basic anti-human, anti like philosophy of life. Like you can't stand somebody having different opinions as you. They're not doing anything wrong. Like he's
It
not
is.
even threatening anybody.
No, it's
So
utter madness.
yeah,
And your choice of this topic at this time couldn't be more timely.
well, I think it's just because there's so many of these assassins happening, right? Like I just saw the pattern of the assassins. Like, why is this happening? Why is there such mysterious stuff about them? Livelsberg or Jabbar on the 1st of January. I mean, it's hard to keep track of them. Where are these people coming from? Why are they doing that? Is there some deeper, darker thing about them? And the other thing is like these guys, like all of a sudden, like he wasn't like that. Like I didn't know. So how are they undergoing this massive personality change? Like a lot of
And
these people have go this person. Like Crooks is like a nerd. He's
yeah,
like a computer nerd, and then all of a sudden he's on a roof with a rifle pointing it against the presidential candidate. I mean, the
and,
timing of that shooting of Trump and Butler was like he was just about to accept the nomination. So like it ties into the Manchurian candidate because if they had blown Trump's brain out, it would have thrown the whole Republican Party into disarray. So
yeah.
they get the Patsy thing and blow his brain out, and the Republican Party's like, who's our next person going to be? We don't have any leadership. Trump is like the leader. So that's why
Yeah.
this movie is important. It's been
Yes.
lost. There's little templates, there's ideas and concepts and narratives within this film that, even though fiction, to play out in fact over and over and over again hundreds of times.
It is an absolutely brilliant film. It is incredibly chilling. It leaves you with a feeling after watching it of great uncertainty and sadness. And I watched it yesterday on the day this happened. Um, but at the same time, entertainment can inform and entertainment can explain things. So I'm not trying to be anti-entertainment, but but there's a lot of really lousy messaging out there, and mainstream media has played a part in that. And I'll be honest, at this point, mainstream media is entertainment. It's largely just opinions, oftentimes expressed by people who think they know a hell of a lot more than they actually do, and sometimes they just don't care. So they're expressing these viewpoints, which then goes out to hundreds of thousands, millions. And that's another thing. Like mainstream media these days, far more people are going to listen to Joe Rogan than are going to listen to MSNBC or Fox News or these various things. So I don't know, man. Mainstream media, get your game up and try to just stick to the facts, because you are adding fuel to an already demonic fire, and it ain't helping.
Joe Rogan is the mainstream stream media now. He
Yep.
has more listeners than all of them combined. So they've
100%.
shot themselves in the foot or the
Yep.
face or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
But I think that there are films out there. There's many different films that are like dramas, crime dramas, or things like that. But I think Manchurian Candidate can be put in a category of other films that may be like Chinatown or Parallax View or Eyes Wide Shut,
Yeah.
where they're actually really trying to tell you how it really works. And so I think that it's set aside, and maybe that's how this stuff gets out to the public, is they call it entertainment. But like Eyes Wide Shut's real. These secret parties exist. People are groomed. Parallax Views about those things. Chinatown is like how some of these blue state cities work. Like they literally, the medical examiners corrupt. People get killed. People end up dead. There's all kinds of financial scams. Like almost every major blue city, including Los Angeles, is royally corrupt, and they're just robbing people blind. And that's the premise of Chinatown. That's the end. It's Chinatown, baby.
China,
And
forget about it, Jake. It's
yeah,
Chinatown.
forget about it. Yeah,
Wow.
so don't forget about it. Don't forget about the Manchurian Candidate. People should watch it again and apply it to like some of these real world events, because it is prescient. It is an important kind of timestamp, because these kind of weird things didn't happen as much before Manchurian Candidate. There were assassins and assassinations, but not at the kind of flurry and scale that we have now.
It is a film of incredible sophistication, and it broaches some timely, maybe even more so than ever, subjects. William, thank you for bringing this to our attention. Thank you for coming on the show. Tell everybody where they can find you. I've already said they can find you on X at William Ramsey IN, but give them the rest.
Yeah, it's on X. I also have a podcast, William Ramsey Investigates. You can check that out. I have a lot of shows. I have a lot of
Thousands.
yeah, I put out the show on the really important Hugh and Cameron court case. It's called the Montreal experiments, is how they distilled it, and it's very important about mind control, because you can see what they're actually doing. I've read it out in its entirety. It's a very important historical piece. And then all of my documentaries are at patreon.com. I have 5 there. And you also post stuff there that I wouldn't post on social media, so you can check me out there. Patreon. William Ramsey Investigates.
I'm pretty sure I'm going to get some demonetization from YouTube. Oh my goodness
Yeah.
gracious. But I'm going to put this out. Ladies and gentlemen, if you like what I do, if you like these conversations like I'm having with William right now, please, right now, just hit the like button on whatever platform. Give it a thumbs up. Give me a review. It helps me a lot. It means a lot. And free speech ain't free, ladies and gentlemen. It's important. And if you're listening or watching this, I appreciate you. William, I appreciate you. And everyone, until next time, keep your heart and your mind open. Peace.
Peace. Yeah,
Bro, I was tearing up at the end, man. This is